Kurtov. Today's daf yomi is Sanhedrin Kuf Zayin, Sanhedrin 107. Today's daf is dedicated for Shmir for the Chayalim, Matzal for the Shvuyim, and Yeshua for Am Yisrael. In this is Sarah, so we are going to start 5 lines from the bottom on 106b. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Doeg v'Achitofel Lochatzu Yimeim. That Doeg and Achitofel did not live out to even half their lifetimes. Tanya Namiachi, indeed we learned. Anshe Damim Umirma Yachatzu Yimeim. So we learned, hold on one second. Hold on one second. So we learned that it says Anshi Dimmer Mirma will not reach half their lives. Kol Shnosov Shal Dog Oayu Al Shloshim Arba V'Shalach Tofel Inan Al Shloshim V'Shalosh. All the lifetime of Doeg was 34 years and Achitofel was 33 years. I'm Rabbi Yochanan Mitchil Kar David Achitofel Rabbo. First David called Achitofel his Rebbe, Ubasov Karo Chavero in the middle. Ubasov Karo Chavero, Ubasov Karo Tamido. Then he called him his friend, and then he called him his student. Mitchil Karo Rabbo first called him his Rebbe. V'atoi Nosh Kerchei Alufei Umiyudayei. Called him his Aluf, his Rebbe. Ubasov Karo Chavero. It says Asher Yachdav Namtik So Bebeis Elokim. Now, Beregesh, and in the end, also Karo Tamido Gam Ish Shlomi Asher Batachti Bo Ochel Lachmi Igdil Alai Ekev Ochel Lachli. Rashi says is he studies my Torah on top of 107a. Kuf Zayin Amalaf. I'm reviewing the Marav Olam Al Yavi Adam Atzma Lidei Nisayon. Person should never, try to test himself. Shari David Melch Yisrael Evi Atzma Lidei Nisayon. David brought himself to a test. He was the king of Israel, and he stumbled. I wrote fun of Ribbon Shalom. This is what happened. God said, Ribbon Shalom, Ma Omrim, Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, Ve'in Omrim, Elokei David. Ma, here Ma means why, like the Manishtana. Ma Omrim, what? Why do we say the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, but we don't say the God of David? Amar Inu Menasali, Ve'ato Menasali. So he said, yeah, they tested me, but you are not testing me. Meaning to say, not just the opposite. They were tested by me, but you are not tested by me. So I'm found a Ribbon Shalom. So he says, Master of the Universe, B'chaneni v'naseni, test me. Shenever B'chaneni Hashem v'nisani. So he says, Amar Minas Noach v'avdina milsa ba'dach d'lodidayu lo'oditano v'u ana kamodinoach. So he says, I'll test you, but I'm going to test you about something. I'll give you an advantage that I didn't tell, but you I'm going to tell. Good morning, Hobbs. The Minas Noach b'dvar erva. He says, I'm going to test you about something as it relates to a sexual sin. Or in 107a, probably around 12 lines from the top. Miyad it was towards the evening. David got up from his slumber towards evening. Usually people go to sleep around the evening, but that's when David was getting up. He tried to outsmart his taivos by saying he'll have his time with his wife during the day, not at night. So then at night he won't have a taiva anymore. So v'nisalma medu halacha, but he forgot about the halacha. Ever katan yesh ba'adam maspio ra'iv marivo saveh. That there's a small organ in a man that if you satiate it, the more you satiate it, the more hungry it gets, and the more you starve it, the more satisfied it is. So, but because he was with his wife during the day, he had even more of a taiva. And he was walking on the roof. And he saw a woman. We know this is Bathsheba. She's bathing on the roof. The woman was very beautiful. Bathsheba, so Bathsheba was washing her head. Tuti chawasa, under a basket. She was being modest. Asa Satan idmalakitziparta. Satan appeared like a bird. Pasak by Gira. So David fired an arrow. Paskal chawasa. And the arrow, because he was trying to shoot the Satan, the bird, the arrow knocked off her head covering, and Igway, and she was shown v'chazia, and he saw her miyad vayishlach tava vayidrosh leisha v'yamar lozos Bathsheba baselia meisha suryachiti. David sent for the woman, and he was told v'yomar, and he said, "Is this not Bathsheba?" the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah, Vayishlach Tavim Malachim, Vayikach Avatavo Elav, Vayishkav Ima. Miskadesh Mitumasav, Vateshev El Beisa, Tashem El Beisa. And so then David was with her. I know the Siv. This is what David says in Tehillim, Bachanta Libi Pakarata Laila. Sraftani, Bal Timtza Zimoti, Bal Yavor P. So this is how David says, you tested me and you tried to see, and Zamoti Bal Yavor P. So what does this mean? Amar. So what does this mean? This means the following, that Amar Iku Zimama Nafal Befume, the man the son of Amar Ki Amar. So he said, I wish that I would have like a bridle in the mouth of the one, the man the son of the one who was sunny, like preventing me or testing me. That basically V'lo Amar Ki Amar. I wish I never said this thing to begin with. Darish Rava, so what do we do with that pasuk? And Amar that David said before God, Ribbon Shalom B'chol also Avon. He says, God, forgive me for that sin. So people don't say your mountain was messed up by a bird. Darish Rava Maidach said, V'chol Avadcha Chatati, Rabbi Necha Asiti, Lamant Tzedach B'Devarcha, Tiskeh B'Shavtecha. You alone I sinned, but I was trying to make you righteous. So Amar David Fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do we understand it? David said to God, Galia v'yadir kamach v'yibal michvah yitzri havi kafina. You know, if I want to really defeat my yetzer, I could. Elamina do limru of these zakilamara. But I didn't want to do it because I don't want people to say that a servant was able to best the master. So I wanted to prove you were right. Darash Rava Maidel Siv. What do we do with the pasuk? Kanil etzel nachol machuvai nagdi tamid. So what do we do with that pasuk? Really, David, really, Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, was for David from the 6 days of creation. But rather, what happened was he she was in pain. But he got her through pain. Really, he was. If he would have only been patient, he would have been able to be with her. But he did it in sin. Really, he was supposed to be with her, but he ate the fruit before it was ripe. What do we do from the pasuk? So what do we do with this pasuk from Tehillim? Amar Dav Nei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribbon Shalom, Golav Yodor Fanecha, you Karim Besari Lo Yadi Ameshosis. You know that if they would tear my flesh, my blood would not spill out because I've lost all my blood because they've embarrassed me so much. Not only that, Al B'Shashem Oskin Ba'arba Misos Bez, and when we study the parak of Sanhedrin that discusses Arba Misos Bez, then David said, I'm giving a shear. They stop the shear in the middle and they say, hey, David, the guy raises his hand in the back of the class. He says, if somebody's with a married woman, what's his punishment? I said, yeah, if he's with a married woman, his punishment is strangulation. But he does have a share in the world to come. But somebody who embarrasses his friend in public, like you're doing, now to me, he has no share in the world to come. So even when David was sick, he was still fulfilled his obligations to be with his 18 wives, as it states, Yagati Varchasi Mitasi Bidemasi Arsiamse. And so he says basically, he says Arsiamse, even when I was sick, I was able to fulfill my duties in my bed. David wanted to worship idolatry to make it seem like as though he was worshiping idolatry, because he just wanted to pretend he was worshiping idolatry because he said better that they think that I sinned, and that's why I died. As it states, Vayhi David Ba'ad Rosh Asher Ishtachava Sham Elokim. Vein Rosh El Avodah Zarah. As it states, Vut Salma Reisha De Dav Tav. As it says in the book of Daniel. V'nil Kraso Chushia Arki Karua Kutanto Vazma Rosho. And his friend Chushia Arki came out to meet him with his garments torn and the earth on his head. Amarlo David, he said to David, Yomru Melech Shekemoscho Yavod Avodah Zarah. People are going to say a king like you is worshiping idolatry. Amarlo Mel Shakamosi Argenu Beno, but what's the alternative? Did I go and kill my son? Mutav Yavod, or his son will kill him, meaning to say, Mutav Yavod Avodah Zarah V'Al Yisrael Hashem Shemayim B'Faraseh. He says, it's better that a melech like me, it's better that I worship idolatry, and so not desecrate God's name in public. Meaning to be better off that I die from worshiping idolatry than from Absalom killing me. So Hushi said, Amar, my time Kinesivas Yafas Torah. He said, it's your fault, because why did you marry a Yafas Torah? Because Absalom came from this. So this captive woman, Amalei Yafas Torah Achmana Shari says it's allowed. Amalei, no, well, Darash Smuchin, yeah, it's allowed, but it's going to cause something terrible. Hold on. What's going to happen? Because we learned to the pasuk, the samach like Yesh ben Sarar Morah. When say Yafas Torah, Yesh ben Sarar Morah. Because we learn whoever marries a captive woman, he's going to have a rebellious child. So Darash Abidustai the Min Beiri. David. Now, what's David like? A silcher chuti. David is like a kuti merchant. Amar David from that Kodesh Baruch Hu. God said, I mean, he's always haggling. David said to God, Ribbon Shalom, shkios mi yavin. He says, shkios mi yavin, who can understand to prevent from doing accidental sins? So God said, I'll forgive you. Amar shaviki lach. I forgive you for your accidental sins. Uminis teros nakeni. David said, forgive me for my hidden sins. Shaviki lach. God says, I forgive you. Gami zeidem chaso chavdecha. Also the intentional sins, forgive me. Shaviki lach. I am shluvi azetam, meaning to say, lo ishtav bi rabbanan. I don't want the rabbis to talk about me. Shaviki lach. God says, I'll give you that. V'nikesimi pesharav. But what does it mean? I don't want them to write about me in the Tanakh. Don't write what I've done. Amaro, God said to him, that I can't help you with. My yud shinatalti misara. I took the yud from Sarai's name, and all those years, or maybe the yud was missing its place. It was screaming. Achaba Yoshua come along. Yoshua's original name was Hosea. Osaftu, I had it to him. Shenemar Veikram Hosea ben Nun Yoshua. And I called Toshe ben Yoshua, call a parsha, Kula, Alachas Kam. If you want me to delete a whole passage from the Torah, what do you think is going to happen? It's not going to happen. In the case of me Pesharav, what does it mean? Absolve me from a great sin. Forgive me entirely for the sin of Bathsheba. Amar Kfara Sid Shlomo ben Chol Amar B'chach Maso. God says not possible. Your son Shlomo will say in his wisdom, Ish becheko begadav lo tisrafena im yalech ish al gechalim v'raglav lo tichavena kin abal ish Yisrael lo yinakeh kol nogeh ba. As it says in the pasuk, well, if you burn your clothes, will not burn. If you walk on coals, will not heat. So too, if you sin with a married woman, Rahman al will not be able to be completely absolved. I'm like, Kohachi nitra dahu gavra. Is it really the case? I'll never be forgiven. So God says, accept upon yourselves afflictions. Kibo, David accepted that as a way of atonement. David got saras for 6 months. And the consequence, the divine presence departed from him. Sanhedrin. And the Sanhedrin departed. It's Tara, he got saras. So it says, absolve me with a hyssop and I'll be purified, wash me from the snow and I'll be white. The stal came in Shlina. I didn't know this, the Shlina departed from him. Meaning to say, that you'll bring me back Saso, and then the Shekhinah will rest upon me. So that proves that the Shekhinah didn't rest upon him when he had the tzara. So Parshum, we met a Sanhedrin, they'll say, Yashuvu Yirecha. Shisha Chadashim, how do you know David had tzaras for 6 months specifically? Because we do the math. They'll say, David ruled over Israel for 40 years, and Mechevron Malach Sheva Shanim, in Hebron 7 years, and Yerushalayim Malach Shloshim V'Shalosh Shanim. And Jerusalem was 33 years. But then it also says, Hebron Malach Sheva Shanim V'Shisha Chadashim, with 7 years and 6 months of Hebron. But in the earlier pasuk, it doesn't count the 6 months. Shema Milan, it starts. So he had tzaras for those 6 months. He says, God, forgive me for that sin. God, forgive him. He says, give to me a sign that you have forgiven me. Amrway, God responds, in your lifetime I won't give you a sign. But I'll give you a sign in the life of your son, King Solomon. So what happened? When Solomon built the temple, he wanted to bring in the Ark of the Covenant to the Holy of Holies. The gates were closed. Amr Esrim Arba, Rinanos, Vulonena. He said 24 praises of God, and the gates of the temple did not open. Amr Su'ush, Amr Shechaminosu Pislayola, but open up your gates. Shlomo said, please open up the gates. The gates of the temple did not open. But then Shlomo said, Kivin Shemar Hashem Okim, Al Tashev Pnei Meshichecha, Zachro Chazdei David Avdecha. God, don't forget the Anointed One. Remember the kindness of David, your servant. Immediately the gates opened. At that moment, David's enemies turned and their faces looked like the bottom of a pot. When everybody knew that God had forgiven him. So we're going through the 4 people who have no share in the world to come, in addition to the 3 kings. And so now we're up to Gehazi. We've discussed Doeg, Achitophel, and Bilam. And now we're up to the last one, Gehazi. Gehazi was the assistant to Elisha, but it says, Elisha went to Damascus. Tried to bring him back to repent. Vilo, but he was not successful. Well, Chazor, he says, go back. He says, I have a teaching. He must speak in Biyado. I have a tradition. One who sins and causes others to sin will be unable to do tshuva. My Ovid, what did he do? He could Amri, Evan Shoeves Toa Lechatas Yeravam. Amida ben Shemaim arts that he had like this magnet and he stuck it between the on the golden calf of Yeravam, and he caused it to be elevated and people worship. The Ikadamri shame Chalkak Bafia, he engraved the name of God on the mouth of this golden calf. And he caused it through magic to be able to say, I know some say Elisha pushed away the rabbis. Elisha, the sons of the prophet said to Elisha, because after Gehazi was pushed away, then all of a sudden the sons of the prophets who were gathering around Elisha said, we don't have enough space anymore. And so we see from here that when Gehazi was around, they called that Ashta, Lo Avutzar, that they weren't squished before them because Gehazi stopped people from studying Torah. You should always push away with the left hand when you have to rebuke somebody, but bring them close with your right hand. Not Elisha who pushed away Gehazi with 2 hands. And now we have a major Girsa issue. What happened was, this is one of the passages. There are several passages in Sanhedrin that talk about Yeshua Notzri. And so this is one of them. And so the censors took it out because obviously it's they don't like any discussion of Jesus in the Talmud. So I have it in my Gemara, so I could say it. Don't be like Yeshua ben Prachia who pushed off Yeshua of Nazareth with two hands. Gehazi, how do we know that Elisha pushed away Gehazi with two hands? Naaman said, take these loaves of bread, basically of silver. Elisha said, where's Gehazi? Meaning to say, the Gehazi had gone to get the money from Naaman. And meaning to say, what happened was Elisha had healed Naaman in the Jordan, and Naaman wanted to give Elisha money. Elisha said, no, I don't want your money. But then his attendant, Gehazi, went back and got the money. So Elisha was very upset. The first thing Gemara says, did he really take so much? Guess who got the mood to shuckle? He just took gold and silver and garments. Rabbi Yitzchak, Elisha was sitting there and expounding the 8 rodents or 8 creepy creatures that are listed in Torah. But Naaman starts about Melcharama Metzora. Naaman was a Metzora. So Naaman said to this Ravisa, to this young woman that he had captured from the land of Israel, so this woman said to Naaman, this slave who he had was taking care of him, said, if you go to Elisha, he'll heal you. Kiasa, when he came to Elisha, Elisha said to him, go in the Jordan. So Naaman said, you're making fun of me. They tell me to go into the Jordan. What can the Jordan do to get rid of my tzaras? So Naaman said to the people who were with Naaman, said to him, you've come this far. What do you care? It's Zil Nasi. Go test it. He went in the Jordan, Vitase, he was healed. Also, so then he brought before Elisha all these things that he mentioned, all the money that he brought with him. Elisha didn't want to accept it. Gehazi, iftar mikaveh Elisha. So then Gehazi left Elisha. Also, he took whatever he could and he hid the money. When Gehazi showed up, Elisha saw the taras spread all over his head. He says, wicked one, now in this world, that's where you're going to get reward for the studying the Torah of the Shemona Shratzim, because when you come to the next world, you're going to get nothing. He says, you'll be a mitzvah for you and for your descendants forever. And he left him white as a leper. And now the Haftorah for Mitzorah, we remind ourselves that there were 4 men on Mitzorah and Pesach Hashar, that there were Tzaras at the entrance to the gate, and they actually were the ones who saved the people. Gehazi and his 3 sons. So now we have this passage about Jesus. So the Gemara says, Yeshua ben Brachya Mahi, how did Yeshua push away somebody with 2 hands and he didn't pull him back? So the Gemara tells us the story. This Gemara tells us as follows. And when Yanai killed the rabbis, also Yeshua ben Brachya of Yeshu, Alexandria. So Yeshua ben Brachya went with Yeshu, Alexandria. When there was peace back again in the town, Shimon ben Sethach tried to call them back. He said, Mini Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. Lechi Alexandria Shimon. He says, I'm sending a message from Jerusalem to Alexandria. He says, Jerusalem says, my beloved, my sister is dwelling amongst you, and I'm sitting here desolate. Come, Asa Yeshua ben Brachya got up. So he was traveling with Yeshu, and he came to an inn. Abdullah Ikaratuva, the innkeeper, this woman, she was very nice to them. Amar Kama Yafa Achsan Yedu. Yeshua ben Bracha said, look how beautiful is this, this host. She's taking care of us so nicely. Amalei Rebbe. So Yeshu said back to Yeshua ben Bracha, Rebbe Yafa Achsan Yedu. You think she's pretty? Well, he said, so Yeshu said, Amar Rebbe. And now Trutos, her eyes are round. She's not pretty. Amarle Rasha. So Yeshua ben Bracha said, wicked one, but Tachatos, like you think I was looking at her body? You're looking at her body? So he said, you're terrible. So Yeshua ben Bracha said, Afik Arameo, Shipuri Vishamti. He excommunicated him. Also, Kame Kama Zimnin, Yeshu came before Yeshua ben Bracha several times. Amarle and Kabon, he said, receive me. V'lo Avik Amashkachbe. Yeshua ben Bracha was ignoring him. Yom Achad Avik Kari Kriyashma. One day, Yeshua ben Bracha was reciting his Shema. Asla Kame, Yeshu came before him. Several kabules. He said, "Okay, this time I'll let him back in." But he made a motion with his hand. He didn't want to talk during Shema. Who saw mitcha dachile? So Yeshua ben Bracha said, "Oh, he's pushing me off again." Azal Zaka for vintevish tachavela. He went and he set up some bricks for idolatry and he bowed down to it. Amar Yeshua ben Bracha said, Hadarbach, repent. I'm like, no, I heard it from you. Am I speaking the other tshuva? Whoever sins and causes others to sin will not have the ability to repent. Others thought Yeshu did magic and incited people and caused them to go astray. Tanya Amar Shimon Elazar, Yetzer Tino Isha, Te Small Docha V'Yimimik Reves. When as it relates to these three areas, Yetzer is your taiva, Tinok is a child, and an Isha, a woman, pushed him away with the left hand but pull him back with the right hand. Rashi tells us the Yetzer is this taiva, that if you push it away too much, then you're not going to engage in things that the world needs. You're not going to have children. So therefore, push it away, but pull it back even stronger. Tinok and Isha, Rashi says they're unsophisticated. And if you push them away too far, they're going to be pushed away from the world. So the Gemara brings, since Elisha was sick, the Gemara tells us, Elisha got three types of illnesses. Echad Shekira Dubim Beitinokos. One was because he caused the bears to attack the children, and the children called him a bald guy. The Echad Shedachvol Gechazi B'Shtei. He got sick because he pushed away Gechazi with two hands. The Echad Shemeispo, and one that eventually killed him. It says Elisha Chalas Chalyo, eventually died. So now, since we're talking about illness, the Gemara is going to tell us something so powerful about illness. Says the Gemara, Ad Avram lo haya bezikna. Well, excuse me, Ad Avram lo haya zikna. Until Abraham, nobody got old. Rather, everybody looked exactly the same. People looked young until they were old. And so, but then since Yitzchak had the same face as his father to quiet those people who were saying that Avram was not the father, called the Chazil Avram Amar Yitzchak. Whoever saw Abraham thought it was Yitzchak. Called the Chazil Yitzchak Amar Avram. They were identical twins. So Avram Rachme, the Avram. So Avram prayed for old age. And says Avram Zakim Babayamim. Avram grew old. Yaakov until Jacob, nobody got sick. Nobody would ever know when he was about to die. By Rachme, so Yaakov prayed, and there was sickness. So why did he pray for sickness? Because they wanted to be able to repent before they died. So Yaakov Avinu prayed for illness. Ad Elisha, until the time of Elisha, on his chalash to mitbach, nobody ever had an illness and got healed from it. But also Elisha by Rachme, Elisha prayed that you could be healed from an illness. As it says, Elisha chalas chalyo asher yamuspo. Okay, this is today's beautiful daf, very powerful daf.